Let's go to number 10. The goal of relationship is understanding, not agreement. I spent the first half of my life, and this is sad, but it's something I picked up from watching the big people. I thought that when you got into a conversation or a misunderstanding or a disagreement with somebody else, the goal was to get them to agree with you. So I spent all kinds of time trying to be better at convincing people that I was right. What do you think that got me? Got me a lot of resistance in people, because people don't like, see, because if I'm going to convince you that I'm right, what did I just convince you of? Yeah, you're wrong. How does that feel? Right? So most people resist that. And so, fortunately, at some point in my life, some people taught me that the goal of relationship is understanding, not agreement. Stephen Covey wrote a book called The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, and one of the 7 habits was seek first to understand, then to be understood. And that works like magic, and I'll explain why in a minute here. So, if you go for understanding first, any agreements you need will flow out of the understanding. And if they don't, it's because you did not take the understanding deep enough. And so we're going to have to learn some skills in this training process about how do you create understanding? How do you make another person feel understood? Because when people feel understood, everything inside them shifts. They lose their defensiveness, they lose their fear, they're more open, they're more flexible, and you know what? I don't know why, but their hearing improves. And if you want to be heard, the best way for you to be heard is to first make the other person feel fully understood. All right? So you go for understanding. Now, how do you do that? And we're going to spend a whole session on this, but very quickly. You listen without judgment. That's not easy. Without expectation and without evaluation. You listen with your ears, your mind, and your heart. Let me explain that one. You listen with your ears. You hear the words. You listen with your mind. You understand the dictionary definition of the words. You listen with your heart. You understand the full meaning that the words have for the other person in the context of their entire life story. Do you hear how deep listening that is? We're going to learn how to do that. Well, let me give you an example. So, some of you I know are experts at multitasking. I'm not too bad at it either. So I come home from work and I'm tired. I've had a really long day. I've been interacting with people all day, and I sit down and I pick up the paper and I turn on the TV to catch the news. So I'm reading the paper and I'm listening to the news. And my wife starts talking to me about her day, which is okay. I can do all these 3 things at once pretty easy. You know, I'm a multitasker. And so pretty soon my wife says to me, "Don, you're not listening." And I say, "Oh, yes, I am," indignantly. And she says, "No, you're not." And so then I say back to her, word for word, everything she just said to me. See, I actually am good at that multitasking thing, and I learned how to listen, you know. And you know what she says? She says, "I don't care, you're not listening." And she's right. See, I was listening with my ears. I was listening with my mind. I was not listening with my heart. It's a huge difference. And you know what? The other person can tell. So have any of you ever tried to do, you know, quick listening, instant listening, so that we could just get on with it? You know? Does the other person know? I think they do. You know, one of the really sad things is I've worked some with really young children, and when a young child finds somebody who listens with their heart, it's like you become a little rugrat magnet. I mean, they just can't get enough of you. And you're not doing anything other than making them feel fully heard, fully understood, because it's such a rare occurrence in their life that anybody listens to them like that. Isn't that sad? You know, because we're so fast-paced and we're more about doing than we are about being with each other. Okay, so the second thing you got to do is accept and affirm differences. You got to let the other person teach you. You got to expect difference. In other words, we just spent a lot of time on that, right? If you're going to go for understanding, you come in with an attitude of not knowing. I have no way of knowing what's going on with you. And then you have to be committed to finding a both win or mutually satisfying solutions. Now, one way to think about that is this. When you come to somebody and there's a disagreement, we got these two worlds that could be represented by the two people or the two positions they have on this issue. And you kind of say, well, geez, how are we ever going to bring those two worlds together? Well, your job is to create a world that's large enough to include both of those worlds. And then you got the solution. How do you do that? Well, we'll talk about that later. I'm just giving you a little pre-thing here. So that would require understanding. We said last time, accepting what is changes what is. If I could do what was required to make you feel fully understood, then you stop trying to sell your position and you stop trying to defend it. And now you're open to moving someplace else. So if your goal in your interaction with another person is to get movement, you don't do it by trying to force agreement. I tried that for 30 years. It doesn't work. You do it by making the other person feel fully understood. And then together you can sometimes find a way to move forward.